The worst horror movie I ever saw was fucking great.
Hello and welcome to This May Hurt a Bit. My name is James Strayer and this is
John C. Myers.
And we are a horror franchise podcast discussing each film in popular and not so popular franchises. And today we are discussing our wrap up of Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. So a long, hot summer it has been. You know, today, today it was nice and rainy in September in Portland, Oregon. Yesterday it was 89 degrees in September 24th. So not to be one of those small talk weather podcasts, but I'm just saying it was a long, hot summer and Texas Chainsaw Massacre helped with that.
Yes, it's a summer that could only be described as Bulgarian.
Bulgarian summer. Yeah.
Those classic Bulgarian Texas summers.
Right. I want to transition into my Bulgarian sweater. That just seems like it would be like nice and fluffy, you know. I don't know. Jolene, what's a Bulgarian sweater like? Just let us know. Yeah, please.
That would actually be pretty cool if they moved it to more like Nordic. It's still Texas, but everyone is like wearing nice sweaters.
That's a great idea. Save that for the end where we say, where do we want this to go?
Sorry, I jumped the gun. I got so excited about sweaters.
Right. I mean, man.
As you do when you're talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Right. I do feel just at the top with as many reboots, recycles, restarts, all that kind of thing. This franchise is the most franchisey franchise that we've franchised so far. Like, you know, it's easy to think of Friday the 13th as the kind of like long, slow evolution. This one, I think, just went wildly up and down on the Richter scale, all over the place. As always, do we like that or do we don't like that? Do we like all the wild swings or do we want it to be just sort of contained within something?
Actually, there's an article in Esquire some time ago from 2022 by Nick Shager.
Oh, the Esquire men's magazine about Texas Chainsaw Massacre and, you know, men's fashion in Southern Texas. Okay.
Men's fashion. Well, the headline is why do all the Texas Chainsaw Massacre sequels suck? Oh. And I mean, it's basically stuff that we've been saying, but it's that boils down to it's just that fundamental misunderstanding of what made the first one so great.
Yeah.
Nick Shager comes to the same conclusion I do, which is that 2 is the only one worth a damn, really, because it's just so ridiculous. But I think, there's just this. So like remaking something in your own image or your own version of it. Obviously, great. Do that. But I just think there's just been this routinely like just missing the boat on what Leatherface is, what made the first one work, what made it scary. And it seems like it got put in the hands of people that were just like, slasher villain. I got it.
Yeah.
And it's not quite that. I mean, although at the same time, like, you know, if you look at the scope of Leatherface films, he is. You know, you can't really make the argument that he's not. He originally wasn't, but they turned him into one. And that, I think, is a bummer.
Right. I mean, it is one of those cases of we have 9 films and 8 of them he's a slasher villain. And basically, one of them he's not. So, like, it's kind of like when a band has a lead singer for a long time and they've get a new lead singer who lasts longer than the previous one, it's just like, well, who's the band defining singer then? You know, like looking at you, Sepultura, like that kind of thing. But I'm just saying, like, even if the first one is as magical as it is Leatherface just now a slasher villain? And I think, you know, in pop culture, I think he is, but I disagree with that's where he started.
I think that's why it hurts so much.
Because
it is just like, this could have been something really cool. It's like, you know, tuning in, and granted, I have not watched the rest of them, so this is probably what happens. But, you know, tuning into Hellraiser Part 8 and, you know, Pinhead is, you know, stalking kids at a summer camp. And you're like, wait, what?
Right.
What's going on here?
We'll get there. Yeah. Those are rough. More like from what I remember, he's stalking like a sleep deprived detective on the case. It's like, you know, police procedural type of thing. But looking over there at my box set
with dread.
Yep. But no, I mean, it's a big thing, kind of like Psycho. And I like some of the Psycho sequels completely, but but like when you start so high, How the Mighty Have Fallen But I don't even think part 2 in Texas Chainsaw is a fall. It's just such a 180 degree, which I think is so fascinating, really, because like I love that they went that wacky with it early on and then tried to get nasty later on, and just there is no way to track this in the traditional way.
But this one in particular, this series in particular, just trying to felt like, well, okay, so Leatherface isn't really working as this. What if we made it like a found footage movie? What if we made it a more grim, French or new extremity sort of thing, throwing him at different genres, like still trying to make the same movie, but doing it from these different angles. Mm-hmm. Like that. There's diminishing returns in that.
Which one do you think got closest to the first one?
I don't.
I mean,
definitely the Netflix one. Definitely.
Yeah,
no.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like I don't think it's close at all. But I would say that the Platinum Dunes ones at least like felt like their own thing.
Yeah.
As much as I didn't really like them, they weren't my kind of movie. A lot of my criticisms with it is like, well, it's a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. I don't know, but like it's just a grimy horror movie. Mm-hmm. It's fine.
Yeah.
Part 4 has a special place in my heart now after the rest of these. Yeah. Like I never want to watch it again, but it's it's not going to go on my rewatch list, but it is still just like, you just had your own thing going here.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the Platinum Dunes remake, we ran through that with Kelly. It felt like a traditional slasher, I guess, and it had that like Hicksploitation thing going for it, which I kind of do like. And some of the photography was really well done.
Right.
And I do like the Leatherface in that one. He feels big and menacing and everything. Again, like it's not, I kind of agree with you. It's not what I specifically like, but I can like that one for what it's trying to do. And I think for what it's trying to do, it does exactly what it is, and it excels at it. It is brutal and nasty and mean, and I think that's exactly what they wanted to do. So I think that's the most successful of the remakes or sequels.
Yeah. Well, I think and that's like you're talking about. Like, there's just this constant resetting of the timeline and redoing it, never trying to create a lore, which I don't mind in this case. That's sure. We talked about sort of the unknowability of Leatherface and how that's kind of good, but they still wanted to. But I feel like so often they just hamstrung themselves, and like just the weird choices of the last couple, the Leatherface 2s, like, oh, which one? Who is it? No one is seeing a Leatherface movie for this reason. Like,
right.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, that's such a strange angle to go about it. Then the Netflix one is just awful.
So of the lore, we always talk about this, like what has been added to the lore, what is new to the lore that you like. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I think it's so stupid, but part 4 just kind of like, I loved it as a one-off type of thing. Now, I made it a point not to re-listen to our episode because I do think, and maybe I will after this, just for the hell of it. Maybe I didn't like it. I can't remember. But looking back on this, because that's part of this whole thesis of this show, this experiment of this show.
The Stockholm Syndrome. Yeah.
Once I watch Netflix 2022, do I have rose-colored glasses for the Illuminati showing up? And I will say, yes, I do have rose-colored glasses for that. Like, I don't want that to be a main Texas Chainsaw Massacre thing, but I like how goofy it was. It tried its own thing. It didn't work, but I was like, well, this is out of left field. This is getting weird. And add to that the whole McConaughey thing and all that. So,
right. I mean, when you see how soulless it ends up becoming, it makes you respect that a little bit more of like, yeah, this wasn't good, but like you riffed on it and went crazy. It just still doesn't necessarily work, but it's
sure.
I would, between the two, I'd much rather watch that one just because it is more.
Oh, I would too.
It's more interesting.
Yeah.
Frankly, which is real faint praise.
Yeah. With sticking with the lore for a moment, part 2, I don't want to dismiss part 2 as a complete like one-off, even though I feel like all these movies are kind of one-offs in their own way. Yeah. I have truly never believed what Tobe Hooper said when he said like, oh, I meant to make a black comedy with the original and now I'm making a black comedy with this. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. Like, maybe you thought you were doing that on set, but once you got into the editing bay, you were making a terrifying horror movie. There's nothing funny about that fucking movie, like nothing. So
I mean, you would have to be like one of the cast members of Leatherface or R. Lee Ermey in the other one to think that, I'll lock my friends in a boiling hot Texas house for, 36 hours. That will be funny.
Yeah.
I think, if there's elements of that in there, you didn't do it right. But the fact that he went back, I think that's part of what I like about it. He was like, all right, fine. Let me do it my way then.
Let me do a comedy.
You guys don't get it. I'll make it dumb so you hoopleheads can enjoy it.
Well, and this usually gets associated with documentaries, but like, there's nothing wrong with finding a film in the edit, as they say. Mm-hmm. Like you find a tone in the edit, you find the best takes. Like that's a common filmmaking thing. I think he found the exact right tone for each of those films, part 1 and part 2, and if he set out to make a comedy in part 2, good on him, because that was hilarious. Like, that's great. Like that opening scene, as Michael said when he was guesting on this, is like, this is what your parents think you're watching in the basement when you're watching, Nubbins as a marionette in front of Leatherface in the car.
Yeah.
It's a long way of saying, I really appreciate the rewatchability and the humor of part 2 that I don't think at all was an intention in part 1, and it was never captured throughout the rest of the entire series. So that is its own beast.
It is sad that no one was able to kind of grasp that same kind of thing, or even take it in like that zany direction and be like, well, okay, let's just do that. I think that there was some of that in Leatherface. I think that they tried to have some of that kind of like
8th one.
Sorry, yes, part 3 Leatherface.
Okay, right.
Like Leatherface doing the speak and spell bit, and just some of that was a little silly, but it feels more throwing things at the wall. Like there was just so much in there. It tonally had trouble finding its footing. Where I think the second one sort of does that a lot better. That mixing the more horrifying stuff with the real zany goofball stuff.
It's like I forget about part 3 sometimes because I want to skip right on to 4.
Yeah.
With the Matthew McConaughey and all that stuff. Part 3, I remember, as just being kind of boring, really. Yes. You got Ken Faree, which is great. But otherwise, that one is the cardinal sin of being boring and not being big and zany in its own thing, I think.
Out of all these, that's the one that probably feels the most like more of the same.
Or more of like an 80s slasher.
Yeah, because I mean, it was just like, well, let's just do the first one only slightly different and just like add these other edgy elements to it that we're not really getting. Whereas, the remake, I think, by being a remake, has a little bit more freedom to do that. Sure. But they still also went, well, yeah, but what if R. Lee Ermey was a monster? And they went more that route, which fair play. But that one and the sequel, which is not
the sequel, which is a prequel.
The prequel sequel, yeah. But yeah, that one is just. Part 3 Leatherface is ultimately just like so forgettable compared to the mishmash of this. I mean, because even part 2 Leatherface, or Leatherface 2, part 8, whatever, it's boring and I don't care. But at least it had like insane gore going for it, which. 3, they wanted to, but they were fighting the MPAA, where now that just does not seem to be as much of a problem.
Yeah, they had that Rube Goldberg hammer machine with the guy hanging upside down in part 3, which was kind of neat, even though it's, again, like, is that in the spirit of the Sawyer family? I don't know. Beyond part 2, I think it's hard to take that kind of stuff seriously. What is in quote unquote the spirit of the Sawyer family, because it goes so off the rails quickly. And
I mean, they completely abandoned the concept of a family in 3. Part 4, it's kind of the same thing as 3, where it's really kind of this loose collection of people under Vilmer, and then they bring it back to the family, but it's a different family Leatherface is adopted into, and then it's nobody, and then it's
Platinum Dunes. It's a whole damn town. Is like a whole damn town, would say, But yeah, it's that's the biggest part that's hard for me throughout this entire series, of like holding it sacred to a part 1, whereas there's 8 more after this that just blow it all out of the water. So that's
it. Just if there was just something else to hang on to in any of those, I'd be, and I'm trying not to be so like, well, it's not one and appreciate them on their own merits, but a lot of them just weren't. Like I said, the Platinum Dunes ones really just weren't my cup of tea.
Yeah.
For the kind of movie there. It's like, yeah, I do have like issues with them. And like, you talk about Leatherface being boring. I think something in the running for that by virtue of it, like we haven't even talked about it yet, is Texas Chainsaw 3D. Like that's just not even on the map because who cares? It was fun
Campbell
to talk
cares.
about with Rob.
Rob Campbell cares.
Yeah. It was such a nothing of a movie. And again, like they really made Leatherface a slasher villain in that.
Yeah.
And you never know where these get taken away. If these are if this is a problem at the early script stage, if this is just through notes, whatever, it all gets taken away. But just there's depth to the first one. And even in the second one, it's just not there for the other ones. Mm-hmm. It's just so often the other ones is just like, yeah, but what if a guy was mean? It's like, all right.
Got rid of the cannibalism too.
Yeah.
Like I was constantly mad that they weren't eating people for some dumb reason. You can quote me on that too. Like
it's a key part to it.
It really is. It really is. Besides Gunnar Hansen, who is our favorite Leatherface? I'm going Platinum Dunes remake Andrew Briniarski because I can't think of anybody who comes even close to being as memorable.
If you're going to take him into a more just like traditional slasher route, I say go that guy.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I enjoyed Bill Johnson in Part 2. Just his frantic Leatherface.
Oh, sure.
I liked that take on it. Mm-hmm. It's different, but it's like that was a difference that I enjoyed because it was still I think some of it that they've gotten rid of in the later ones in particular is that weird vulnerability that Leatherface has that's kind of scary, and it's in its own way that he's like this, like, oh God, is he just a child under there?
Right.
Like I feel like they give lip service to that. And again, the Platinum Dunes versions, but he's still just this hulking menace. Mm-hmm. Whereas there's a childishness to the Leatherface in Part 2 that I find both endearing and terrifying.
And it's so delicate to film that to me, too, because whenever I think of other versions trying to touch on that, it can in no way capture that moment in the first one where Leatherface sits down next to the window and he looks so legitimately uncomfortable, running his tongue over the Leatherface, looking out the window. And it's like a slow push in on him with this like low rumble of a soundtrack beneath it. And I'm just like, nothing will touch that to me, because it's terrifying and it's sad at the same time. And I don't think any of these other movies have like captured that lightning in a bottle magic of what makes this hulking maniac like sad for a moment.
Well, yeah. And I think there's something to that with that. They really tried to in later ones make Leatherface this sympathetic character, or here's why he's doing it, whatever. What's that's missing is in that moment that like the horror of that empathy. Mm-hmm. The horror of like recognizing that might be that he's just a guy, and that you have those feelings too. That's can't be. He's a monster.
Yeah.
And by just changing that into like but someone made fun of his his hair lip or something, and then took that horror of that and turned it kind of into sort of a bizarre sentimentality that doesn't really work.
Right. I mean, I just don't think I'll ever be a fan of the prequel about how I'm sure we'll get into it as further we go along, but I just never care how our hulking maniacs get the way they are. I just don't care.
Yeah, because most of the time they're not very interesting.
I don't want to be sympathetic either. Like I like it is.
Right.
It is more than fine to have a pure evil character, and the last thing I want is do your thing, cuz, and like getting tossed a chainsaw to like join forces with Leatherface. No.
Yeah, because he's a troubled anti-hero who just murdered and ate people.
He's the Punisher now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he's killing the bad people.
I want to see that on Blue Lives Matter, like bumper stickers as a chainsaw. You've misinterpreted another pop culture character.
Why doesn't this make you feel safer?
Right, this chainsaw.
What we're just talking. I got so distracted by do your thing, because that just it's too stupid to make me angry. There's still like a chuckle in there somewhere, but it's just but I'm also just like too tired to enjoy it.
And I'm sure we mentioned this on the show, but the actress thought it was stupid too, and the producer said the whole movie's stupid. Just say this line, and so she did, and as we've touched on Leatherface, who's our favorite? Do we have a favorite final girl? Because I think that becomes more of a thing in this series because they turn Leatherface into a slasher villain.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's again think of what a final girl is. Hopefully assertive, which as we discussed in the first film, Sally Hardesty, as much as I love her, not assertive. She lucks her way out of that situation. I'm not saying that in a condescending or bad way. She didn't so much fight her way out as in got lucky to get out. And again, has the greatest exit.
In fact, she saw an opening and she took it.
She saw an opening and she took it. Yes.
That's business sense. And that's money moves. And
she's living the grind style. So
buy my Sally Hardesty NFTs and Bitcoin, please.
Even though she has the greatest exit of the entire series, if not most horror films, I don't want to discount her from the conversation, but like, is there another final girl in this series that we like? And I mean, off the top of my head, I think I mentioned this last time. Like, I do like Jessica Biel. I do like that her empathy is what gets people in trouble. Mm-hmm. Not that I want that to be a lesson in a movie. Hey, kids, don't love anything or you'll all get slashed up. I don't want that to be the case. But like, when can we be more empathetic towards people? We're in this situation. I think I like her next. Renee Zellweger is fine, but she's in such a wacky movie.
Yeah.
When she yells at Leatherface to sit the fuck down, like, I don't feel like that was earned so much as that was just like a funny thing, like a funny in-joke that the movie had, not her strength, Yeah,
there weren't a lot of like coherent arcs in that movie.
No, not at all.
I mean, it seems obvious, perhaps consider if we're talking about the final girl and Carol J. Clover's version of it.
Yeah, it's got to be stretch.
I mean, that's what she talks about. She is, as far as like the sort of tropes that Carol Clover lays out, that she is this like assertive and she is able to use tools and ends up taking the tools of the master to destroy them, whatever. But that she's also interesting, which I think is something that so many other characters just don't have.
Sure.
And I think that's part of the problem going forward as well, is that these are just not very good movies and the characters aren't that interesting. So particularly as you get past, because like Jordana Brewster just is not, there's nothing wrong with her performance or anything, but just her character is just not that interesting and is just there. It's harder as that goes on to kind of give a crap about a lot of these people.
Let's not skip over Stretch because she is fantastic. So she's got, the whole radio DJ thing going for her. I feel like she has more to do. Like she meets up with Dennis Hopper, like they discuss a potential plan. She does. She's got that great, terrible, sad scene where her buddy gets his face torn off and she has to sit there with it like on her, I feel like she has more to do than a lot of these other final girls. Well,
she has more interactions with them.
Yeah.
So like in that, like the way that she kind of figures out why Leatherface might be interested in her and like uses that against him. Again, very, very interesting stuff. But they just didn't do that for the later ones.
Right.
It's like, I liked Renee Zellweger because it was fun to watch Renee Zellweger be in a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. But yeah, particularly like beyond Ken Foree, I couldn't tell you most of the people in Leatherface.
Viggo Mortensen.
Viggo Mortensen, right.
The man who is far too pretty to be in that movie. I still contend.
Even his weird little stuff in that movie was fun. I'll give him that. So that again puts it more above the Texas Chainsaw 3D. As far as being the most boring.
The one in the Leatherface 2 is basically like a nurse who just gets mowed down because she tries to pin it all on Leatherface's mother, which is like a new wrinkle that they're trying, but I just never really bought it.
Well, it's similar to what they do with Sally in the Netflix one, where it's just like she then just becomes this way for Leatherface to show how powerful he is. That he's supposed to be this like, no, he turned everything aside and went back for his family, so it doesn't really matter. Obviously, you can build that in a way that if you actually had characters and interest that could mean something, but instead they just like waved at it. I don't care about anyone in the Netflix one.
Yeah, let's just
none of them.
people are well aware of what we think about that one. So just back up a week
Yes.
on our disdain on that one.
Shout out to the person on Instagram that said we were too nice about it. So
yeah, exactly.
I mean, because like
For sure.
you know, the opening of our show has a quote. This is the best horror movie I ever saw. It's fucking great. And I still think that's mostly true.
I mean,
but sometimes it's Texas Chainsaw 2022.
For sure. Yeah. I'm still going to watch this crap. So that's just all there is to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How does this, if in any way, differentiate itself from other 80s slashers? Because if we're saying like Leatherface should not have become, but he has become an 80s slasher villain, does this still have its own style? I feel like all of them do have their own style. Like I feel like the bottom of the barrel, and I say that with love, is Friday the 13th, because it's just like a guy stalking through forest. Freddy, you got the dreams. Pinhead, he should have never become a slasher villain either, but you know, he's a demon. Leatherface gets lumped in here and he's got his own shtick too, but it still all becomes like a kill spree type of movie.
Well, I think it's because you're dealing with a character a franchise that just keeps restarting all the time. It's definitely the same, you know, like
that's true.
It's all just, you know, it's Texas and here's someone else that gets lost in Texas and then Leatherface kills them. So yeah, they really just leaned on that aspect of it. They leaned into like what was the slashery part of the first one and took away all the other stuff. They, you know, so it's just that repeated ad infinitum.
Here's one question that seemed more apt for this franchise than others, and I don't have an answer for it, so we got to muddle through this, but worst Easter egg. Because the more these kind of movies get made, the more pissed off I get at these dumb Easter eggs. I'm not sure if I have an answer, but I just remember thinking like watching the Platinum Dunes prequel, and then of course the Leatherface movie, which is a prequel, just thinking about those, which is ripe for Easter eggs. Like, oh, so that's how that happened, all that kind of stuff. So maybe I set myself up for a bad question here. I'm like, well, I'm trying, because there's different things I don't like. So I don't know if it's like, if it's in general what you're looking for, but I thought like the Saw cameo in Texas 3D was really stupid. Which one? Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Oh, I've got one. Now that you say that.
Oh,
okay. In Texas 3D, when the guy is the sheriff is going down there with the phone camera, and they say, wait, pan back to that freezer.
Oh yeah.
Like you would never, it's only to show the woman bursting out of the freezer, like in the first movie. And that pissed me off so much because I love that effect in the first movie with the sound and all that kind of thing. Just like nobody would walk past that freezer and just say, pan back over to that, you know?
Yeah. Like, oh, what's in that? They got some dilly bars in there.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe you got some nice salted deer meat in there or something like that. I don't know. Yeah. So, okay.
Well, I mean, these are hillbillies. So maybe that was the thing. And the guy's like, ooh, that's where I keep my victuals. I always get more annoyed by Easter eggs that are more about letting you know that I know. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I've seen these movies.
Yeah.
Just so you know, they can't just like do the thing. They have to like let you know that they know that they're doing the thing. And I feel like there's a fair amount of that with the remakes. And while I say that, the one exception to the rule that I immediately think of is and I think I like this just because it's so subtly done, is the camera sound grill opening in the Netflix one. But I do enjoy that. Just because it's a stupid thing that if you don't know, it's fine.
That is a good jumping off point of like, I wouldn't call that sound effect an Easter egg, but it kind of is that. And they just kept using that throughout the series. And it would just make me so angry every time they would do it multiple times because it's such a great sound. It puts me so in the dark depths of the first one. On the same time, am I just being a jerk because I wanted to see a door slam in every movie? Like there are certain things that I did want to see repeated, such as the door slam after the first like mallet over the head, maybe a meat hook kill. I guess that's not an Easter egg. That's a trope, I guess. Like that might be a little bit different.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But imagine if in Dr. Sleep, Ewan McGregor spent half the movie going, "Here's Johnny," constantly. That would be awful. And I feel like that's something that happens a lot in these.
How many times does he do that in Dr. Sleep?
Only 3.
Okay.
I think. Yeah. I'm looking at the chart. I'm due a Dr. Sleep reference.
Sorry, Dan.
No, but I'm trying to think. There's just so much of these are just like trying to identify with the first one, whether like just a straight up remake or just letting so it's tough to kind of boil it down to a specific thing. So the fact that these exist is my least favorite Easter egg.
Right. I mean, flipping that question on its head a little bit, I will say that, and maybe it's just because I can't come up with a better idea, but I am pretty okay with the idea of the Platinum Dunes remake finishing in a slaughterhouse, because the slaughterhouse is a mythical, unseen kind of weird thing that has a big effect on the town in the first one. Like, yeah, I really love how little it's talked about, but how major it is of putting people out of work and all of that kind of stuff. I think that's super, super important to the first film. They're going to remake that thing. Yes, we're putting them in the slaughterhouse at the end of this. And that works Absolutely. For me completely. So I guess that's the reverse of a, that's not so much an Easter egg. It's just like a reference to something previous that really worked for me.
Okay, there's a reference that absolutely did not work for me, but I love. I've said it before. I will bring it up a billion other times. Part 4. Grandpa just leaving the movie. Yeah. It is still one of my favorite. I will just randomly think about that during the day sometimes and laugh. That he just picks up a knife and exits the film. And I love it.
To this.
Yeah, I think a lot of the grandpa stuff I don't like when they bring like grandpa back and it just kind of didn't matter. But it's I'd be mad if he wasn't involved. Yeah. So who knows what I like.
All right, so let's start narrowing in here. Favorite kill. What's the favorite kill? We're going best picture here in Oscar.
Yeah.
News here. I'll just go first. Best kill to me. There's lots, and you might remind me of something else, but I almost think that we should just take out the first one, that we're not allowed to say it.
Yeah. I'm trying to think beyond.
But before we do that, just the original meat hook is just so. It's an original meat hook. I said it before on the show over the last 16 weeks or however long we've been in this Texas heat, but just A, the no blood, B, the sound that she makes when she's on the hook and her hands trying to pull herself up off of it. There are a few things more terrifying in a slasher film to me than that moment. Like, I think that's so effective.
Yeah.
And I can't think of anything that comes even remotely close to that in this series.
Yeah, because I mean, like thinking ahead, I'm just trying to think of like each one, because there was a lot of like brutality in the Platinum Dunes ones that like, well again, like not my cup of tea, but like it got me. Like, it's not a kill, but like when Arlie Ermey has the guy's face wrapped in
wrapped in plastic,
saran wrap, and then like stabs his mouth to get the air. Oh, awful, terrifying. I thought that was very effective.
Even in that one where Leatherface chainsaws the guy's leg off around all the laundry, that was just a really effective like action sequence.
Yeah,
that worked.
Because I'm trying to think. I'm like, well, no, he saw the guy there, and then he saw the guy there. Yeah, that. I mean, like that.
Oh, I mean, cutting the face off of other DJ in part 2.
That was something. I mean, the whole kill at the beginning was fun. With the guy's top of the head gets chopped off. I mean, not like clearly just announcing this is the kind of movie that you're going to be watching now. Yeah, I guess I think about these less in terms of like the spectacle of the kills and more just like they get the later ones just get so interested in just being mean, that it's more about the pain and the I don't want to say torture because it's a chainsaw about that rather than just like the pure spectacle of something like a Jason killer or a pumpkin head impaling a guy on top of a church.
I mean, that's the best one. Or a pumpkin head tossing a guy up into the trees.
Yeah, that's true.
Also, worth noting, the Hollywood Theater in October is playing both Pumpkinhead and Texas Chainsaw Massacre on the big screen. So go see them if you're able.
I thought for a second, I thought you were going to say both Pumpkinhead and Pumpkinhead 2. I was like, Blood Wings?
We would have a weird obligation to be there, I think.
Yeah. I mean, again, like talk about the rose-colored glasses. I'm like, oh, yeah. Blood Wings, please.
On the heels of favorite kill, I think that's just going to be hard if we didn't really take notes all the way through, like what might be our favorite. But we did not. We've been forgetting to do this recently on a part 1.
Oh.
Did you have a guess as to how many kills there would be in 9 Texas Chainsaw films? Now, I can't say what my guess is because I looked this up before we recorded, so I have an answer for you. But I'm curious, noting, of course, the shootout sequence in the prequel.
Yeah.
The Chainsaw Massacre in the Netflix one, where he takes out 15 people in that one.
Yeah. The
diner is very violent. Yeah. Do you have a rough number on kills for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise?
64.
Double it.
Really?
Okay.
I mean, that shouldn't surprise
less than
me,
double, but 111. So
good God.
111. 5 people get murdered in the first one. And so that means that 106 people die over the course of 8 films subsequently after, you do 5 for the original. So,
yeah, because I mean, like the first couple, the first few are pretty low. I mean, they cut out some of the more ridiculous ones from 2 of like when they go kill all the college kids or kill Joe Bob Briggs.
Yeah.
But they're still contained. I mean, even 4, there's not that many, there's really not that many deaths. But then, boom, it just gets nuts there towards the end. They really just amp up the body count.
Is just so much higher. It's ridiculous. So,
yeah.
111. As we wind down, where do we want to see this go next? What would be the 10th Texas Chainsaw Massacre that you would want to see? Do you want to take it back to the beginning? Do you want to do a third legacy sequel? Do you want to?
Well, it's obvious. It's the 10th one.
Nice.
Somehow Leatherface ended up on the shuttle. Yeah, it's the one thing we didn't want to have happen. I'm kind of at the point now where it's like, just do something stupid with him. Why not? So all this like serious grim stuff. I think that's also what because the tone of it has been pretty consistent throughout. After 4, the first 4, like they kind of go up and down in terms of like zany and silly and whatever, and then they just become grim.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what's bugging me about the back end of this is that it's all just and it's kind of that's why they all sort of mush together in my head.
But it's granted there are different types of grimness, but the first movie is as grim as it gets. But is it so you're saying don't chase that grim anymore?
If you're going to chase that grim, figure out what that is. I think that the Platinum Dunes one gets closest to that. I still don't think it hits it, but it gets closest to having an idea of what was sort of going on there. So if you just wanted to be a slasher villain, like really lean into that, do something where he's in a new town now. It's like The Secret, you want to make it internet-y and influence things that it's like you remember that pink sauce that came out a couple years ago? Year or 2 ago, it was like, some like thing that someone on TikTok was selling, and it was like giving people botulism or whatever. I don't know if it was botulism, but and then there was like people that were like trying to sell like crawfish boils, like mail to order crawfish boils. They'll boil it and then put it in the package and send it to you, and then you're supposed to eat it. So do something like Leatherface is running one of those. Like that's where the family is now. Is that the cook is now he's selling that
TikTok
stuff.
dances. The Leatherface dance at the end becomes like a thing that the kids do. And
you could make it so quietly grim about that like, he's a murderer. And then at the end of it, that he's got a character in Fortnite.
Yeah.
Like
directed by Jane Shoden, I think would be a good call I saw the TV glow.
I saw the chainsaw glow. Yes.
It would be fantastic to do a Texas Chainsaw
just something to make it real. Yeah, I mean, particularly like, okay, so if the whole thing is that we have this sequence of just jamming Leatherface into different horror styles, let's do it in the new kind of, let's do an elevated horror.
Right.
Let's do a kind of weird allegorical one. Absolutely. Why not? We've tried doing the slasher thing a billion times with this guy. Take him somewhere. The horror has changed. Let's take Leatherface along for the ride. Why not?
I'm all for the social commentary when you can do it right angle. So I would be all for the food insecurity and put them back into cannibalism. I would be wary of making it sound like, oh, you're poor and you can't afford food, so you got to eat people. So that is a little bit of a sticky wicket, but
well, it's kind of like with the gender thing where it's like in part 4 where they went like, well, no, Leatherface is trans and that's why he needs faces. It's like, well, wait a minute, I'm not so sure about that. I think all bets are off with this guy because you've tried to just slam into anything else. Maybe this one will fit. I don't know.
And it's going to be so far away from Baghead anyway that you can kind of do whatever you want at this point.
Well, it's also funny with this one too, because it's not like so many people have had their hands on this thing and then just went, I don't know. Like, I mean, the fact that Lionsgate was just like, we could make other movies, but we just didn't. We just, and so then it gets kicked over to Legendary or whatever, so I don't know if there's necessarily the same interest that there once was. Cause particularly like, I feel like legacy sequels, you're not seeing as much of those anymore because we've kind of hit all the big ones.
It'll frankly,
not all
only
of
be
it,
people like us to watch it at this point. I really, I would watch it without a podcast, but a 10th Leatherface movie. Yes, I'm going to watch it, but
I'm still going to see it. I've spent this entire podcast complaining. I'm still going to go see it.
Yeah. Right.
I'm not an idiot. Wait, no, I am.
Look, whatever they do, sure. Even if Netflix does another one, I'm sure I'll watch it. And I'm not even sure what the best approach is at this point. I mean, and there's people, there's certainly, the fan base for it. There's people making ripoffs and fan films all the time. I would like to take a special moment here to shout out my favorite Texas Chainsaw Massacre ripoff. It is not, in fact, a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, but it was released in Italy as the third sequel, or I guess the second sequel, is part 3 of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This movie called Night Killer. Okay.
Which is by two of my favorite oafs of Italian cinema, Claudio Fragasso, creator of Troll 2, Helen Troll 2, if you're familiar with that, the best worst movie, and Bruno Mattei,
yes,
who was editing on it, but then was brought in to add some more gore to it because Fragasso's initial cut lacked the gore. It's has nothing to do with Texas Chainsaw. It's this weird, this woman gets assaulted and then it was so bad she has amnesia about it, and it's this weird psychosexual thriller that they just intersperse this Freddy Krueger type villain murdering people. He's got this huge claw, and it's always the shot of just a close up of clothes and a hand punching through the clothes. Okay, with the claws, just awful, but I love it. It's so funny, and it's just funny to me.
Texas Chainsaw.
It's not, but it was released the same year that Texas Chainsaw 3 came out. So Italy just went, guess what? It's this.
Gotcha.
It's and that's common or was common over there, and that stuff's always so funny to me. Have you ever seen those Ghana and film pictures?
Oh, sure. The posters.
Fire
Walk With Me is a genuine love of that poster line.
It's so funny that's just a regular thing. If people at home, if you're not familiar with these, look them up. These film posters from Ghana, they're amazing. Because so often, and this was the case also with a lot of Polish film posters of yesteryear, where it's I don't really know what the movie is, but this is kind of the broad strokes of what I have, or it's just make it look exciting. So there's one with Jerry Maguire, buff, breaking out of his, busting out of his shirt, holding Uzis. But how many of these do you see where you're just well, Jerry, he's not showing up with an Uzi. How did I don't even know what to believe anymore.
Already got butts and seats by that point.
Yeah. So, it's streaming on Night Flight, I think Tubi and other stuff, but it's got the mom from the flashback of Silent Night, Deadly Night, Tara Buckman in it, just dumb as hell and incompetent, but so wonderful.
Would that sneak into your list? As in, like, what would you put it over in this franchise?
Yes, I would rather watch. I would rather watch this part 3. It would probably be my honestly third or fourth choice, because it's so stupid. And like, if you've seen Troll 2, you kind of know what you're getting into here. It's not like that level, but it's not great.
Yeah.
So I love it, but it was more fun to watch than a lot of the later ones. So which definitely makes it not a Texas Chainsaw movie.
Sure. So I think that's a pretty good segue into, after 9 Texas Chainsaw movies, kind of wanted something fun to watch for our next franchise. So, John, can you tell the good folks what we're going to tackle next?
Well, we got tired of a big guy lumbering around. We thought, what if some little fellas were all kind of scrambling around? We're rascaling around.
Rolling around, if you will.
Rolling, right? Maybe. But they couldn't just be little fellas. They had to be different. They had to be like hairy.
So Gremlins, right?
No, I mean Gremlin-esque. I'm thinking something more like a varmint or a
ghoulie.
No, because it's like ghoulies are still kind of demonic. This is a little bit more like animal-y. It's got like a not like a vole, a critter, perhaps.
A critter. Critters.
Oh, there's more than one of them.
There's 5 of them. Let's watch Critters. Let's watch all 5 Critters movies. So, how many of y'all have seen, I'm just going to say it, past the first 2 Critters? I have not. I've only seen the first 2.
I haven't seen past the 0 one. I have never seen a Critters movie.
You've never seen a Critters movie?
I've never seen a single Critters movie.
All right. Well, this is exciting, especially because, I don't know, man. Let's make Halloween, like, let's make the next couple of months kind of celebratory. Like, this is party horror here.
Yeah.
You know, this is fun times. This is not only crack a beer while you're watching this, but like maybe shake it up and spray it on your partner while they're sitting next to you, like
they'll
watching the movie.
Appreciate it, I'm sure.
Yeah, when you finally get them to watch a horror movie with you and you spray them with beer, like it's totally going to be worthwhile.
When they kick you out.
And if you do film it just to put on our Instagram, man, because we need content.
Yeah. Take the challenge.
Critter beer.
Take the ruin your relationship challenge.
Right. No, but yeah, we're gonna watch all 5 Critters movies, and I've only seen the first 2. Second one is directed by Mick Garris. Mm-hmm. You know, horror mainstay.
I will back up and say we talked about Psycho 4 real quick. It is like, you know, as far as prequels for movies go, I still contend that one's not bad.
Not bad. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, after a grim 9 Texas Chainsaw movies, I kind of wanted to party a little bit. Yeah. So we're gonna get into some little guys scrambling around doing stuff.
Hell yeah.
Series. So this is gonna take us through, but I think we're trying to plan a couple of like fun bonus things for October because it's Halloween time, and
yeah,
everybody needs extra horror movie podcasts and extra suggestions of things to watch because you know, well, I was gonna say we're all stuck inside, but you know, I mean.
Not everyone lives in the rainiest place ever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Horror today. So, yeah. So, I don't know. I picked up a box set of the Critters. Now, here's the main thing. There is a box set of the 4 Critters movies. And then there is a 5th movie called Critters Attack. And I meant to look this up beforehand, but I'll look it up before next time. I think there's even a television series. It's like 8 episodes.
Series. Yeah, it's like a
web series.
It's like a web series they turned into a TV series, I think.
Okay, so if it's short enough, I'm watching that shit before the wrap up, for sure. So everybody, roll into a ball, grab a beer, watch Critters, part 1 for next time, and hey, just start celebrating Halloween with us. Mm-hmm. But it's that time of year again, so
start getting scrambled.
Yeah, let's scramble around a little bit. So until then, you can find us on Instagram at This May Hurt a Bit Pod, Hurt a Bit Pod on YouTube, and you can email us at thismayhurtabitpod@gmail.com. So we'll see you next week. Rolled into a little ball.
Good night.
Good night. This has been a Caretaker Press production. It was produced by James Strayer and edited by John C. Myers. Logo by Ethan Kimberling and music by Michael Arthur Holloway, who you can find on Bandcamp. Follow us on Instagram at thismayhurtabitpod and email us at thismayhurtabitpod@gmail.com. Give us a 5-star review over on your favorite podcast app, and we'll see you next time.